I'd like to start off by asking you just to give a little introduction of yourself.
I am Jennifer Moore, and I have been teaching yoga for about 25 years. And specializing in prenatal and postnatal and women's yoga for the last 20. My daughter's 21, so it kind of worked out that way.
Oh,
And yeah, I I started off just teaching vinyasa and ashtanga and more of the intense kind of yoga styles. And then I became pregnant. So 4 years after I started teaching yoga, I became pregnant, and I was looking for prenatal yoga, and all of the classes that I was going to were so gentle. I mean, they didn't want you to move at all. And I thought, I just want to do my like dynamic yoga practice. And can't I just move my body? And everyone was saying, no, you can't do downward dog. No, you can't do twists. No, you can't. And I really wanted to. So I decided to find out why. So I started to ask doctors and physical therapists and other yoga teachers, why can't I do these things that I really want to do? And what I realized was there was not a lot of information. There were no scientific studies saying that you couldn't do downward dog. People just were afraid. And there was so much fear in the yoga world about pregnant women back then. And so I decided that I wanted to find out everything I could about yoga anatomy. I did childbirth education. I read a lot of books. I really interviewed a lot of people, from like rolfers to physical therapists to doctors. And I decided, based on the information that I got, I was going to do my practice. So I did what felt good in my body, and I created this whole flow for myself while I was pregnant. And it was amazing. I have to say, when I was 9 weeks pregnant, I fell down a flight of stairs, 15 stairs, and I hurt my back. And I went to a rolfer, and this is one of my inspirations because he told me, you have to keep moving your body. You have this hormone called relaxin in your body, and it's going to make everything more mobile. And if you just lay down, if you don't, move your body during pregnancy, you're going to have a lot of issues with this, with your back, because of this fall. So I did my practice. I moved my body. I had the most amazing pregnancy. It was so phenomenal. And then it came time for me to have my baby, and I just was so thinking, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a hypnotherapist, labor is going to be really easy for me. I'm just going to go through this and meditate the whole time. And that's not what happened. It was like 36 hours of labor, and it was hard. It was really hard. And I had this moment during my labor that I will never forget. And I know you heard the story already, but it's just so amazing.
Everyone
to
needs
me
to hear this story. So tell us.
I was sitting in a rocking chair. I was 7 centimeters dilated, and I had been in labor for 30 hours. And I remember thinking in that moment, if I had just really practiced some of the things that I already know, some of the things that I already teach, being a hypnotherapist, being a yoga teacher, this would be so much easier for me. And I thought in that moment, I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to help women prepare for and get through this moment. And I've been doing that ever since. So I have been a doula. I've worked with over 500 pregnant women. I've been to over 10,000 hours of labor with women. So every moment of their labor, talking them through. I started teaching prenatal yoga right after I had my daughter, and decided that I was just going to go for it. And I was going to, keep researching, keep finding out. And I knew that people wanted to move just like I did. So I ended up teaching a class that got really popular really fast because everyone wanted to move. And so I opened up a yoga studio in 2002, and my first yoga studio. And then started to have a big demand, and I needed to train teachers. So I started to have people apprentice with me and train with me. And I saw so many pregnant bodies, and I was able to really understand a lot more about how prenatal yoga works and how pregnancy works by working with these thousands of pregnant women that I was seeing every year. And I started to also train yoga teachers at that time. So After that, a few years later, I made a DVD. It got really popular, and I started getting invited to go teach other places. So I went to South America to teach first, and then I went to China, and then so I've actually been teaching all over the world, and so I've met so many people. I've met doctors and midwives. I've met yoga teachers. I've met people who do things in, traditional ways in their countries. I have learned so much in my travels, so much, just as much as I've learned in the labor room. And I love sharing this with people, and I love to inspire them and show them that women, when they're pregnant, are strong, and they need to be strong because pregnancy is so incredibly hard. Everyone talks about how hard the birth is. Like, giving birth is like running several marathons, but it's not just giving birth. Actually, being pregnant is so hard on your body. And if you prepare, if you train your body just like you would train in a marathon, then you can have a really amazing pregnancy and birth and beyond. So my passion now is working with women and anybody actually who is wanting to have a more vibrant pregnancy, feel good in their bodies, and feel like they are really owning their body. Like they, this is not something that's being done to them. Like pregnancy is not being done to them. Labor and birth is not being done to them. They're actually participating in it. They're actually thriving. And there are so many things about birth that can feel really good. And so tapping into those things using yoga as a practice. So that's what I'm doing.
Yes, you definitely helped me as a yoga teacher, and it's so important to have even basic prenatal knowledge when you're a yoga teacher, I think, because what I found in my studio, um, as soon as you never know when a pregnant woman is going to walk into class, right? You never know. It'll be like a hard class, and a pregnant woman will walk in and she's got this big pregnant belly. And if you don't know the basics, like I've had teachers, I've been out of town or traveling, and they've literally phoned me freaking out going, what do I do? So I had to put my own teachers at my studio through a mini training of basic prenatal skills, because it's so not what we think. Even with a good initial yoga teacher training, it's so not what we think. First of all, like you said, pregnant women are strong. They can handle a lot more than what we think they can. But also, like when I teach prenatal or when I work with other teachers, I definitely picked up on what you taught us, your students, in even adding that fake belly, because unless you wear that fake belly, you really wouldn't know how to like about alignment. You really wouldn't even know how to guide a pregnant woman in like giving her modifications and stuff in a classroom, right? So your training is so essential and so crucial to every yoga teacher. And I really do believe that every like 200-hour yoga teacher training should at least have basic prenatal, knowledge given to yoga teachers. I think it's so necessary, and I've added it into my teacher trainings. It's
Oh,
so
that's
important.
wonderful.
Yeah, so thank you for
Absolutely.
that.
And it's more than just prenatal. I think what people get so afraid of pregnant women, but they aren't even really concerned with postnatal people. And you actually have much higher chance of getting injured postnatally than you do prenatally, because prenatally you're like taking care of your body, you're thinking about the baby, you're not, when after you have the baby, women are like, let me get my body back, I'm going to do everything I can, and they actually can injure themselves and do very often injure themselves when they come back. And so what I think is even more important than prenatal training in yoga teacher trainings is postnatal training. Like if a woman's still breastfeeding, she might have had a baby 2 years ago, but if she's still breastfeeding, she still has this hormone relaxin in her body that is going to create more mobility in her pelvis and in the rest of her body as well. And if she overstretches, she can have instability in her joints, and she can actually create a lot of problems. People get physical therapists that I know, and I work really closely with a lot of postpartum physical therapists, they say that they see so many more injuries postpartum than they do prenatally because of that.
Yes,
So,
yes, definitely. So it's preventing future pain and future issues in women as well. So I just wanted to quickly let you know that because of your training and because of what you taught me, I was there with my first delivery with a little Chinese baby last
oh,
year. Last year, so it was just the most beautiful experience. I think I cried more than the parents. He entered this world. So thank you for that.
oh
Yeah, it's
yeah,
everything you taught me. Like thank you for that. And because of you, I have passed on a lot of your knowledge onto other yoga teachers. And
thank you.
yeah, so I feel truly blessed and honored that you're here today sharing your knowledge, with everyone. But
Thank you.
yes, okay, so I have some questions here that I'd like to ask you just in case I
Okay.
forget. And I know we're most probably going to go off and talk about even more stuff. Um, so, yes, okay, so we've asked you that, women's issues. So, menstruation, pregnancy, and menopause, that's like a
Hmm.
pretty wide, everything to do with women's health, really. I notice that a lot of women don't really know their bodies. A lot of women, I have every age group come into my studio, every age group of women, and they're so unaware of what's going on in their bodies. I mean, that's overall, like in general, with people in general, like they don't know what's going on with their bodies. They have a disconnect with their bodies. But women, it makes me sad when they're unaware of what really is going on. During like lately, I've had a lot of older women come in with menopausal symptoms and not knowing what to do with their bodies or not knowing how to deal with it. So any information you can give us on overall women's health would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Let me start here. Um, One of the things that I've noticed, and things that, as a woman growing up with, is that we're taught that as women, all of these like huge milestones in our life are negative, right? And they're supposed to hurt, and they're supposed to be painful, or they're supposed to have really negative like side effects, right? So for example, menstruation. Um, Most of the time you don't hear women say, oh, I'm about to menstruate, I'm so excited, it's so wonderful. It's actually more like a chore, and it's something that's negative, it's something that we have to hide. It's something that is not supposed to interfere in our lives, but it does. You're supposed to have cramps, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. All of these things, we are kind of programmed from hearing women talk about them, throughout our lives. Pregnancy and childbirth is the same thing. Most people hear that pregnancy and birth are supposed to be the most, or at least physically having the baby is supposed to be the most painful thing you're going to ever experience, something that you just have to get through. And then what do you have to look forward to? Menopause, which is basically, especially in Western cultures, is really about kind of losing your womanhood, and about what you're losing. So you're losing this thing, that menstruation, which you don't like anyway, but it's even worse to lose it, because it means that you are no longer seen as beautiful in the society. You're no longer seen as valid. You're no longer seen as, a person, a woman. You're just a person, right? And then there's all of the things that go along with it. So things like hot flashes, things like anxiety and mood changes, depression, fuzzy thinking, forgetting things, right? so, So, there's this 6-year period, which is called perimenopause, which it happens as you're going into menopause. Actual menopause is when you have not had a menstrual cycle for at least 1 full year, and then you're actually in menopause. But people in Western society, we really don't look forward to that. It's really about how uncomfortable you are all the time, all of the things that we can continually complain about for that. And so when I work with women's yoga, what I like to do is I like to have people experience menstruation, experience pregnancy, even childbirth, experience postpartum, experience menstruation as what are the things that feel really good about these things. Because if we tap into those, there are hormones in our bodies that are supporting us to feel really good during these times. And I used to get really bad menstrual cramps, really intense. And I started doing this practice of like, when I'm having like heavy menstruation, when I'm having cramps, I lay down, I put my hands on my belly. Sometimes I'll put like a hot pack on, and I'll think about what feels really good right now. And I started to enjoy these sensations in my body. And I realized that not all the sensations are pain. A lot of times the sensations that I'm feeling are like a pulling sensation, or they're like, a maybe like a squeezing sensation. And when I started to be able to identify the different sensations and stopped thinking about them as pain, I started to realize that these actually don't feel that bad. And if I do the right things, if I take care of what my body's telling me to do, instead of running around in my daily life, if I take a moment and I place a hot pack on and I lay down, or I get into a really yummy yoga pose, which I can show you a few of those in a bit, um,
Yes.
you know, um, then I can really enjoy this feeling. And that cramping feeling doesn't feel bad anymore. And we can do that with pregnancy as well. And we can do that with labor and childbirth. There are parts of actual contractions during labor that can feel really, really good if you're tapping into the sensations that you're feeling. Like when you're coming down from a contraction, it actually feels really good to release that
Yes.
energy. So when we start to, in yoga practice, focus on the things that feel really good and being able to identify what those things are and how good it feels when your muscles relax after you're in a yoga pose, or how good it feels when you're using your strength in a yoga pose, right? And how you can tap into the really good feelings, then we can use that as women throughout our entire lives. And not only does it help with the actual physical sensations that we feel, but when we start to focus on the things that feel really good, it's kind of like when you have a gratitude practice, you are physically changing your body's chemistry. You are releasing endorphins and beta endorphins. You're releasing feel good hormones like oxytocin. And those things are going to combat the stress hormones that we feel every day, like the cortisol and, the fight or flight effects. So what
Yeah.
we're doing is we're stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system, right? So we are able to have calming, deep breaths, regulate our breathing. We're able to feel what is feeling really good in our bodies.
Yes.
And this all the way goes all the way through menopause, because menopause, what people don't understand is that when you're in menopause, you have these two hormones. You have luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone that are released from the pituitary gland. And these hormones actually create that same kind of euphoria. And you can have so much more access to them once you go through menopause. So people in menopause, a lot of times, are going to experience more creativity than they've ever had in their lives. But instead of creating internally, like we create a baby internally, you're creating externally. You're creating in the world. And if you can tap into that energy when you're in menopause, it will change the way that you feel about yourself, about the world, how other people see you. So yoga is this tool that we can use to get to know ourselves, to get
Beautiful.
to understand that if we tap in to the hormones we already have in our system ready to go as soon as we can release some of that pain and fear, then we can have ecstatic lives as women and we can enjoy every part of being a woman.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. And I'm definitely getting to that age now where I'm noticing a few differences, and your body definitely does change. And um as a yogi, it helps. It really does help,
It
right?
so
Having this
helps.
mindset and this knowledge. Otherwise, I think I'd be going nuts if I didn't have this knowledge and really getting mad at myself and my body. Yeah. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
there's things you can do with yoga. Like for menopause, you're having things like, if you're having things like hot flashes or anxiety, there are things that you can do in yoga that are going to kind of cool you down, that are going to cool down your nervous system and cool down your body, and staying away from things that are going to really like increase that energy. Like we stay away from rapid breathing or really hot yoga, things like that. And we start to focus on the more cooling things in yoga. And then you can really enjoy those times. So even hot flashes, even, dealing with anxiety or mood changes, yoga can actually be really pivotal in being able to not only survive those things, but thrive during them.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it definitely does help. I've used some of my pranayama teachings for, you know, I don't even know, like I'm 47. I don't know if I am going for it or I'm not, because sometimes when your body goes through some stress, women's bodies, change as well. When I lost my grandma, I didn't have a period for 3 months. And I'm talking about this because this is good information for women to know anyway, because like you said in the beginning, and me and Angelica kind of touched on it yesterday, in the Western world we find it embarrassing to talk about such natural things, right? We should not be
Absolutely.
embarrassed about talking about these things. These are normal everyday experiences that we have as human beings, and it shouldn't be embarrassing to talk about them with one another. But like when my grandma passed away, I didn't have a period for 3 months, and I was experiencing some hot flashes, and my gynecologist thought maybe I had gone into early menopause. But then my periods came back and they were normal. And then my mother passed away within a year, and then
Oh,
the same thing, right? So 2.5 months I didn't have a period, and again I was getting hot flashes, and I was like, okay, did I go into early menopause again? What's going on? And then after a few months, everything went back to normal again. And the
yeah.
only difference I feel in my body, my periods are back to normal, is just more cramps. So I don't
Hmm.
know if that's something with an age thing, because I was one of those lucky females that I would look at some women who would be complaining or staying in bed for 2-3 days. Oh, I'm cramping, and be like, no, like, this is nothing. Get up, put your big girl panties on and deal with it. Because I never experienced cramping until a few years ago. And then I was like, oh my God. So I guess our bodies do change the older we get, definitely. But our
Absolutely.
yoga practice definitely helps. I use so many tools through my knowledge of yoga to help with the symptoms, and it definitely helps. This knowledge definitely helps. Yeah.
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 And there's with menopause, it's like it's a process of like 6 years, usually, typically about 6 years. So you're going to notice things happening, sometimes more, sometimes less. And first thing is that your progesterone levels drop down, and then estrogen levels drop down later, like when you're getting close to actual menopause. So those all have symptoms that go along with them. So you can kind of tell, like, the hot flashes are usually near the end. Those are more associated with lack of estrogen. That,
Yeah.
and the tissue gets a little bit drier. All the stuff that we don't talk about ever.
That's
Right?
why I
Um,
brought it up, because I'm sure
yeah,
I'm not the only one, but no one wants to talk about it.
absolutely. I'm 48. I'm right there with you. And so, all of these symptoms that you have are normal, and they're going to ebb and flow. And I think what happens is people get so hung up with this, like, am I in menopause now? Like, it's this moment, but it's not a moment. It's a process. Menopause is a process of 6 years, and then it's like a whole nother year of not having a period at all until you're actually fully in menopause. So you're gonna have these like times of ebbs and flows, and definitely stress, and that can play a huge role in your menstrual cycle. So I really wish people knew more about menopause. It's something that, like, when I learned about it, I was just floored that there's so much information and no one teaches us this. I mean, you learn things about sex ed when you're in school, like really basic, but at least you learn a little bit depending on where you are. Unless you're in China, then you don't learn any. And
I loved it
China,
in India, by the way. I loved it in India, by the way, because all the teachers were male, first of all, right? It was so hard to find a female yoga teacher in India. It's the complete opposite of the Western world. But then also, I was doing an Ashtanga training out there, and all the teachers were male, and they were totally open about talking about periods. Like, the teacher would be like, if you're menstruating, don't come to practice today. I loved it. It was just such a normal part of life, and there was no embarrassment. And I love that. And I just wish we had a little bit more of that in America, in England, in the Western world. I wish we could talk about it a little bit more freely.
And I wish that people integrated yoga more into their actual cycles, because a lot of times we've been told, don't come to yoga if you're menstruating, or don't come the first day. But yoga actually can really help. It can really help with cramps. You can do something like, let me show you one of my favorite poses. I'll show you one of my favorite poses for menstruation. It is like the yummiest thing ever. Okay. Can you see me okay here?
Yes, perfect. We see you perfect.
Great. So I have a bolster and I have a blanket, and I'm going to actually go into a pigeon pose. And in order to do this, I'm going to roll up a blanket so that it's a really thick roll, and it's going to go underneath my hips so that I'm lifted up just a little bit and supported. And this is really nice. And I'm going to have a bolster right in front of me. So I'm going to bring my knees on the bolster and just come into pigeon. And I'm in a supported pigeon. I'm going to pull this bolster all the way up so that it's compressing my belly. And then I'm going to lay down over it. And I'm getting this really nice compression of my belly while I'm in pigeon. And that compression, when you're having heavy cramps, feels so good. And then if you have somebody around who can rub your lower back during this, it's even better. So anything with menstruation where you can find that compression, I will sometimes do this with just Janu Shirshasana. Place a blanket over my leg and do a forward fold and just get that really nice compression of the belly. So if you're bleeding heavily, don't go to bed. Get on your yoga mat and do really slow, compressive poses. And it feels so good. One of my other favorites, just coming forward this way. And if you need to, if you can't, if you don't, not super flexible, you can lift up the bolster a little bit and just come over as far as you can. And I've got this nice pressure in my, on my, right on the belly area, right on the uterus. So it's like when you have a knot in your shoulder and you massage it, it feels so good to massage it. It's that same kind of thing. So
beautiful.
So I want people to get off of, I want them to get out of bed and get onto their mats, and you don't have to move a lot. You can just be, but just bringing in the breath and seeing what feels good. When we can just focus on like the things that feel good instead of focusing on the pain, it just changes everything. It really does.
Yes. And also just to change your mindset as well, just to you know, instead of focusing on, oh, periods, cramping, whatever, just think about, you know what? We're women, we're amazing. We create life. I
Yeah,
mean, this is just a
exactly.
small price to pay for that, right? And it's a
Right.
beautiful thing. Our bodies can create a living being. That's
And
pretty amazing.
it connects us all, right? Like it connects
Yes,
us all. Like when you live in a house with another woman, or you live, you know, in a group with a group of people, or you're with someone a lot at work, you start to sync up with your cycles. It's
yes,
like we are so connected. We're so much more connected than we thought we were. And just having that connection is something that men don't really get to experience, right? I mean, in the same kind of way. So yeah.
that's beautiful. Um, so yeah, we covered how yoga can help with menstruation. Um, what are the benefits of yoga going through perimenopause or menopause? We kind of covered that as well a little
Yeah,
bit, but we can go into
yeah,
that a
we
little bit more.
sure, sure. For menopause and perimenopause, yoga can help um, to kind of find a balance in your body, right? If you have too much heat, you bring in cooling and you find a balance. Instead of living in that heat and getting exacerbated by it and doing things, you know, or anxiety, things like, you know, I feel like heat and anxiety kind of go together, but anxiety and mood swings and heat, instead of kind of feeding into those by having your thoughts, you know, mentally going all the time about how I'm so hot, you know, or oh, I'm just so anxious. Instead of that, we go onto the mat, and just like we balance the rest of our bodies, we're going to balance that. We're going to bring in cooling poses. We're going to bring in cooling breath. We're going to do things that are going to help to balance out the whatever is going on in menopause. And so it can be really empowering, because we feel like we're victims in our bodies a lot of times, right? I mean, women do. They feel like they're they're going through this is being done to them. And really, when you can kind of own what's happening in your body and work with it and learn to actually help to balance it and see what it needs, then it you can have an experience of feeling so much more a part of your body. Like this is a um, you're not a victim, you're a participant in your own life, in your own body. And it's empowering.
Yes, yes. Can I bring up another issue that I'm seeing a lot in the Western world, especially for women also trying to come back to physical exercise, but C-sections. I would like to talk about that a little bit because I have
Sure.
my own opinions on that. But like
Hmm.
I'm seeing so much of that in the world right now. Women like trying to be convinced to have C-sections, or also you can say anything you want about it. I know that we have someone else joining as well. One second. So I know that you go into that a lot in your training.
Hmm.
We can touch that in a couple of different ways. So one, how soon after a C-section should a woman come back into practice or movement? And also your thoughts and concerns or anything you'd like to discuss on C-sections. I'm bringing it up because it is like I'm seeing more and more of it now in the world.
Absolutely. And I just wrote a book about it. So
Oh, okay. So I'd love for
thank
you,
you.
before we
Thanks
go,
for bringing
remind
that
me,
up.
right, before we go, don't, just in case I forget, make sure you tell us about your books and stuff. We still have
Yeah.
some time, but if I forget and have my perimenopause moment of like, yes. So yeah, C-sections.
Yeah. So you know, cesareans are really common, and I think that people are starting to understand a little bit more about them. I think that many times, and it depends on what culture you're in, because, you know, I travel around a lot, and I've seen there are certain societies where cesareans are very in demand because they have like it's a status thing. I've also seen that people are really afraid. They're afraid of, well, what's going to happen to their actual vagina, if they give birth, and what's going to happen to their bodies by having a baby come out vaginally. And there's so much fear around that. There's so many misconceptions around that, that people will jump to wanting cesareans. Now, there's also there's also a lot of cesareans that are done when women didn't want them. And I don't think cesareans are bad. I actually think I'm so happy that we have the ability to do them, that they are out there and that they save lives all the time, and they're great, but they're done way too much. And really quickly, just want to say that the World Health Organization did this big study on many countries, and they determined that the best outcomes for moms and babies are countries where cesarean rates are lower than 10 to 15%. And that is like double in the United States. we're at 30 to 33%, depending on where you are. Some places are even more than that. I mean, there are places I've been where there's 70% cesarean rates, certain hospitals where there's 90%. So yes, this is a really big issue. And I do want to touch on coming back to yoga after having a cesarean. It's complicated. You have a couple of things that happen. Most people think about they have one scar, right? One cut, but really there's two incisions. There's an incision that happens that goes through the first layer of skin and fascia, and then they manually will separate the abdominal muscles, and then they make a second incision through the uterus. So both of those incisions need to be healed before a woman comes back to yoga. Otherwise, you can have issues with that. And in my online course, I go through a lot of this, and I talk a lot about like what to do and how to go back from a cesarean and how to do cesarean scar roll massage and all this stuff. But and like what poses you can come back to when. But really, it's going to take at least 4 weeks before you're really going to be doing much yoga. However, in day one, you can start doing some things, because maybe day 2 or 3 with a cesarean, because you're holding your baby the whole time, right? So after you have a baby, you're going to be holding them, you're going to be nursing, maybe at least holding them, and you're going to get imbalances in neck and shoulders. And we think about our yoga practice as being, oh, you have to get on the mat and you have to spend an hour and a half doing a practice or whatever. But really, yoga is much more than that. We can spend 5 minutes a day doing yoga. We can just do head, neck, shoulders, upper back. We don't want to move in the area of the scar too much. We don't want to have anything that's pulling on it or twisting it, or doing anything that's going to cause discomfort until the scar is healed. And that can take a while. But that doesn't mean that we don't do yoga. We can do yoga from day one. There are a lot of things that you can do and not move this part of your body, right? And that are going to be really beneficial, not only to help her physical body because of doing things like holding the baby, but also that's going to really affect her mentally. Because a lot of times after women have cesareans, if they didn't want them, there's some grief there. There's some feeling of inadequacy. There's some feeling of, why is it everyone else can do this and I couldn't? Did I really need to have a cesarean? And so our yoga practice can be more about that, can be more meditation, can be more honoring your body and seeing that what you had having a cesarean was a birth. It was a birth and it was special. And this place where you have the scar is the place that your baby came out of and took its first breath. And it's beautiful. And so it's kind of changing the story a little bit by using yoga and by using mindfulness. So when can you come back after cesarean? Right away, doing meditation, right away, doing upper body, head, neck, shoulders, upper back, and waiting until the scar is healed to do anything more than that. Now, once the scar is healed, it's really important that you move. You actually need to bring movement into the scar area in order to break up some of that scar tissue. And I have so much to say about this. I don't know where to.
It's really funny and ironic that Naomi signed in just as we started talking about C-sections, and I know she won't even mind me saying this. I've known Naomi for a long time. One of Naomi's issues, and towards the end there is a Q&A she can ask you. But one of her concerns is she had both her kids cesareans, is she's always complaining about being able to get her stomach back. And I know, Naomi, that you wouldn't mind me talking about that. Yeah, I think she has something to. You're muted, so I can't hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is such a huge concern with people after they have a baby. And there's a couple of things that that
Oh, she said just
one
was C-section. Okay.
Oh,
Rocco. Okay. Yeah, and she's always like really upset and sad about that. Like one of her concerns about getting her stomach back. And I've had a few
yeah.
other yoga students and females like talk about that. So I don't know if you have anything to share.
Yeah,
For these
a lot of
women.
times when you have issues with getting that lower part of the belly flat again, or back, has to do with the abdominal muscles themselves. So, you know, we have a lot of times when you're pregnant, the abdominal muscles are going to separate. They're going to separate along a line of connective tissue called the linea alba. And that separation, if that connective tissue gets too thin or gets too unsupportive, then you are going to have this thing called diastasis recti. And it's really hard to get that area flat again when you have a separation there. And also along the same lines, when you have a separation in the abdominal muscles, many times you also have pelvic floor issues. So you might experience some leaking of urine, you might experience back pain is really common. And those two things really do go together. And so seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist is absolutely one of the best things that you can do. There are things we can do in yoga to help, but really getting assessed first and seeing exactly what muscles you need to be working on, and then having a yoga teacher help you to implement that, I think is pivotal. Because as yoga teachers, we really can't go inside and do internal exams and see what's going on, right? So, you know, we talk about the core, right? The core of the body is the pelvic floor on the bottom, the diaphragm on the top, and then everything in between. So we've got the psoas, you've got the abdominal muscles, and if any part of that there's a weakness, you're going to see weakness in the rest of the body, in the rest of the core, at least in part of the rest of the core. So, you know, if you can't get the belly back and you're having any like low back pain, especially when you do things like abdominal exercises, and you're having any kind of pelvic floor issues, then those things absolutely go together. And once you fix them, you're going to be much more likely to be able to get that belly back to where you want it to be.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that advice.
Sure.
Some overall advice before, I don't know if anyone else has any questions. So for females, you've covered so much. So for those that joined later, just to touch on Jennifer again, I did my prenatal training with Jennifer a few years back in Bali. When I was looking for a teacher, a prenatal teacher, I always look for the best in the world. So I went around saying, who's the best in the world? I want to learn from them. And everyone was like, Jennifer Moore, right? She has DVDs and books, and she just knows her stuff on everything to do with like women, you know, birth, prenatal, postnatal. She's a doula, and so many things that you do to help women worldwide. And we really thank you for that, because we need more women knowing more about their bodies. But any other advice you have before you tell us about your books, or any pose you would like to show us before you tell us about your book and your online teacher training, or before we open up for a Q&A, if anyone wants to add anything?
You know, I've touched on a lot, and I've just kind of scratched the surface on so many things. And I think that one of the things I want to say, and I know it's not like exactly related to giving you information, is that if you're having any issues as a woman in your body, if you're having anything that's like, leaking urine or back pain or little things, as women, a lot of times we tend to be like, oh, that's just normal. I'm supposed to be having that. Oh, I had a baby. That's just supposed to happen. And they it's not normal. It's very common to have a lot of these discomforts, especially if you've had a baby, or if you're pregnant, or even like, pre-pregnancy. But reach out and ask for help, because a lot of times you can be living much more vibrantly. You can be much more healthy if you just like let your yoga teacher know, especially, if it's you, because you have so much information too, to be able to like talk about, like you said, talk about these things that we don't talk about as women. I'm having issues with my menstrual cycle. I don't, might notice I don't come to yoga, 3 days out of the month because I'm laying in bed screaming, these things that, we just don't talk about as women. Let's start to talk about them. Let's start to have conversations that feel like they're kind of uncomfortable sometimes, but, let's support other women in those, if they have those conversations, and say, I'm here, you can talk to me about that. So I think we have a question there.
Yeah, so maybe what we can do is, with these questions, instead of typing them, would you like to actually how do you think you would prefer it, Jennifer? Maybe they unmute themselves and ask you rather than chat one by one. Yeah, that would be great. So Angelica, if you want, you can unmute and ask that question.
Okay, so I started perimenopause, but I don't have health insurance. I haven't had health insurance for like over 10 years. And so I have to pay everything out of pocket. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not really sure what is necessary to go and do with a doctor, like what exams I should get, or if I should get any, or it doesn't really bother me that much, but I do have 2 periods a month. Like I have one that's a regular period, and the other that I guess is like when my egg is releasing. It's like not really a period, but kind of, and it's like a mini period. So anyhow, I just don't really know what to do. And I don't even know like how to get guidance, and I don't want to get ripped off because, everything is so expensive. And I was just wondering if you knew.
Well, I can't give medical advice, so I can't really tell you exactly like, oh, it's fine that you have 2 periods a month, like I can't really say that. I can tell you that it is common for that some women do have a couple of periods, some months, and I have to say, I know I keep going to this pelvic floor physical therapist thing, but I work really closely with them, and I think that a lot of times they can tell things just from the condition of your pelvic floor, and especially if there's any issues that you might be having, like a lot of times if you are having a really big dip in estrogen, the tissue is going to be a little bit more fragile, a little bit drier, things like that. They can tell. I think if you definitely are having issues, then it's a good idea to go and see a doctor at some point, an OB, but maybe go to somebody who has a little bit more of a naturalistic kind of practice. So like, for example, there are certain doctors, more naturopath doctors, who will use hormone replacement things that are much more natural or bioidentical. So they're not actually using the hormones, or even some things like, wild yam, which is like, kind of acts in the body like progesterone. And so there's different things that you can get. So I would say, if I were you, I would go to a naturopath first, someone who is a doctor, a naturopath, and then, get assessed. And then the other thing I would consider, if you're having any kind of issues with pelvic floor, because as we get up toward the age of 50, a lot of women, whether you've had a baby or not, are going to have pelvic floor issues. And this can be something that if you get to it soon enough, you can really make a huge difference in the rest of your life as far as your pelvic floor health. So I would say those things, those two things.
So you talked about wild yam. So yes, I use some natural stuff. And then another thing that helped me, Angelica, that may work for you too, I was having similar issues. There was something going on with my hormones, and I did go to my gynecologist that couldn't really do anything, and then I went to my doctor that couldn't really do anything. So I work 2 doors away from my studio in Burbank. There's an acupuncturist, and I went to the acupuncturist, and I know that she's amazing, and my hormones just through one session just felt amazing, and she could read my blood work, and that it really helped me. And I take wild yam, and I also take black cohosh, and also red raspberry leaves. So a combination of that has helped me with similar issues, Angelica. So if you want to go the natural route, try that. It worked for me. I had exactly the same issue as what you just spoke about.
Yeah, you do have to be careful with some of the herbs, especially like the black cohosh. I mean, I would say you're right. If you can find an acupuncturist who works with this stuff, that's, you know, and they are probably going to be a little less expensive than going the whole naturopath route sometimes. And that, you know, I'm a huge fan of acupuncture too. I've used it my whole life.
I think Angelica was going to say something else. Did you unmute yourself?
That's super helpful. And that's probably the best guidance that I've gotten about this. It's challenging right now because everything is closed, and you know, like I don't feel comfortable doing a lot of this stuff virtually with somebody I've never met. And they like, I called a doctor the other day, and they were like, it's going to be $300 to see us virtually. Like, I'm not going to give them $300 to look at me on a screen, you know, like, because I had like a bee sting and I was concerned about it. And they were like, yeah, it'll be $300 to talk to you on a screen. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So, you know, it's like this waiting game of when are things going to open. But that's
I don't know,
really.
Are you in Southern California?
So we live in an RV and travel full time. And right now we happen to be in Yuma, Arizona, but we plan to be here for the rest of the winter. But we move around. So we went all the way from Nevada across the country up through Michigan up into the Upper Peninsula and then back around this year. Wow. So we move a lot, which is a whole nother challenge, right? Like I had to have a tooth removed this year, and it's like, where do you go? Who do you find? You know, and I have to do this all along the road. And I've had like 4 dentists this year. So, you know, it's like extra complicated, but I really appreciate your guidance on that. It's very helpful. And it doesn't really bother me. I'm not in pain or, you know, I just don't know if what's happening is normal, and am I supposed to be doing something? Because, you know, everybody's like, I've just been kind of on the natural path my whole life. And everybody with health insurance is like, oh my God, you gotta go get a gynecological pap smear right now. And I'm like, I don't know that that's what that's for, but you know.
I mean, it might do you good to have one, like just check in video call with someone, with, you know, someone who's maybe a midwife or an OB or something, just to like put your mind at ease about what's going on. I think that might be something that's helpful too. And then definitely going the acupuncture or the naturopath route for sure if things start to bother you more.
Excellent. Beautiful. So. Excellent. Naomi, you asked something and you said that you can't unmute. What was it? Did you ask something? You said you can't unmute. So if you want to chat, put it on chat. And then Angela's here. I don't know if Angela has any questions. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask before Jen tells us about her upcoming teacher trainings and her book. Here, Naomi's writing something. Here, so.
I think it's 2.
Her son is 5.5, the one she had the C-section with. She always complains about she's very much in shape, right? Naomi is super fit, but she always complains about her stomach, not being able to get it back to normal or how it was before her C-section. So she's saying, is it too late now that her son is 5.5 years old?
No, not at all too late. Not even a little bit. Really, it's easier when you're breastfeeding because you have this hormone relaxing in your body, and so it's a little bit easier to recover things like, you know, cesarean scars and diastasis recti. But it does not mean that you can't do it after. You absolutely can. There are some really great techniques out there that can help you, just specific exercises that can help you. People can help themselves for a really long time after having a baby. I worked with someone who had her baby 20 years before, and she was able to get her diastasis back and help her pelvic floor. So not
Beautiful.
too late.
Beautiful.
I mean, there are times when, like, with pelvic floor issues, like if you're getting an organ prolapse where the organs are actually dropping down at a certain point, you know, you're not going to be able to bring them back up all the way. You could bring them up a little bit, but the sooner you start working with it, the sooner you're going to be able to help yourself get back into.
She's saying it's more, I can't strengthen my core. I work out daily.
Right, I know. And so working out actually could be working against you, because if you're doing specific exercises, especially working out, like anytime you're doing crunches or anytime you're doing things that have a lot of flexion of the spine, where you're working your rectus abdominis muscles, that actually can make it worse. So if you work out too much, especially doing core stuff too much, you can be making the problem worse. It's really about doing specific exercises that are targeted to help with this issue. And they're actually really gentle exercises. And then eliminating some of the other things that you might be doing that are making it worse. Like if you're doing really intense back bending, you can be making this worse. If you're doing a lot of core work, you can be making this worse. So it's really about finding out like what it is that you need, and then doing those exercises and eliminating the ones that that are hurting you. And get a lot of backache. Yeah, that's diastasis recti, pelvic floor backache. All three go together.
So what would be something that she could, who should she go and see? What would be something that she should start doing? Do you have anyone that you would recommend her go see?
Let's see. I would say if you're having multiple issues like that, you should first go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. So make sure that they specialize in pelvic floor. If you're in Southern California area, there's tons. You can absolutely find someone. Ozzy,
Naomi's
you might
in
even
England.
know.
Naomi's in London.
Even better.
Yes.
Even better. The US sucks with all this stuff. In so many ways. Yes, absolutely. Find a physical pelvic floor physical therapist and get assessed, and then you can work with someone like Ozzy, who can take you through. Once you get assessed and you figure out exactly what the issue is, she can take you through all of this diastasis recti healing, and also pelvic floor work as well.
Yes, perfect. Excellent. Yes, I knew that this was a big issue for Naomi because she's brought it up several times.
Yeah.
Yes, you're welcome, Nay.
You're welcome.
Angela, I don't know if Angela has any questions.
I do.
Yes, good. I thought you would.
Hello.
I do have questions. First of all, hi Jennifer. It's very nice to meet you. Ozzy's spoken very highly of you. So thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge and your time with us.
You're welcome. Thank
So
you.
my question is, I had a baby 20 months ago. I also had a miscarriage 5 months ago. So, and since then, I've had really heavy menstrual cycles and cramps, which I never had before. So I don't know. I keep telling myself I think my body's trying to reset. But I don't know if this is something that's normal, if there's something I can be doing to, one, maybe help the blood flow so that I could get pregnant again. Or just to like lessen the symptoms of the menstrual cycle, like the cramps and the headaches.
Yeah. Oh, I do have something I want to share with you. How long do we have?
Yesterday's went over as well slightly. So yeah.
Okay, first of all, check in with the doctor about your symptoms. Make sure everything is good on that end, because I can't give you medical advice and tell you, oh, it's normal, so check in with them. But what I would recommend to you, and where are you located?
I'm located in Southern California. I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, so you will absolutely be able to find, I'm not sure if they're open right now, but you will probably be able to find someone who does Mayan abdominal massage.
Oh, okay.
If you've ever heard of that, this is something that I really think works so well. One of the first things that can happen is that it can help to reposition the organs. So if for some reason, your uterus may be a little bit tipped off to one side, that's going to affect the blood flow that goes into the uterus. That's going to affect the lymphatic system, everything. So you need to have, in order to get pregnant, a certain amount of blood, inside of the uterus, the endometrial layer. And so that's going to repositioning the organs, making sure that they are getting the circulation that they need, can be really helpful. Also, one of the things that we see with Mayan abdominal massage is that cramps can get helped a lot. And I've been doing this, I do it on myself every night before I go to bed. And it has changed my life. So I highly recommend it. So that is one of the things I would say.
Who performs that? Is that like a specialty massage?
Yeah.
Like who would I actually try to seek out?
Sometimes, let's see, I've seen it with acupuncturists who do it. You can just look up Mayan abdominal massage. It's Mayan abdominal massage. You'll find someone for sure in Southern California. There's a couple of different ways that people do it, but it's pretty basic. And the nice thing about Mayan abdominal is that you have one session and then they teach you how to do it on yourself. So it's not something that you have to go and have like multiple sessions, like a chiropractor who says, oh, you need 20 sessions with me to get fixed, right? So that's something that can be really helpful. The other thing I want to say is that I know you had a miscarriage and that you're like, that's going to be something that's going to be on your mind. And I want you to know that it's really common to have miscarriages. I mean, we don't talk, it's another thing we just don't talk about. And most of the time when you have a miscarriage, it really does have to do with that specific egg and sperm combination just not being viable. And so it's most of the time has nothing to do with your body and like your inability to keep the baby. And a lot of women will just blame themselves. They had a miscarriage. Like, what did I do? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? And I, especially since you've already had a baby, I would just kind of like keep that in mind in your own head that, it happens and it's so common and it's still painful and I don't want to take that away from you at all. But I do think that sometimes it's helpful just to know that this is normal and it happens especially when that specific egg and sperm are not viable. So, there could be something going on also that with the cramps that has absolutely nothing to do with the miscarriage.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine. I do think, always get assessed if you're having some kind of issue from a doctor, but then also maybe seeking out some alternative, because usually with doctors' offices, like actual OBs, the first thing they do when you are having really intense cramps is they say, oh, go on birth control. So like, that they don't have a lot of other options. And I think that knowing about Mayan abdominal massage is a great option too.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will definitely look into that.
You're
I
welcome.
think Naomi's question was, can that also help with her problem? The Mayan abdominal massage.
Yes, it can actually. But with Diastasis Recti, you have to be a little bit careful. There's certain, you have to let the person who's doing it know that you have a separation, because you don't want to dig into that area too much. So they're going to go to the outside of the muscles when they do it, instead of going directly in the center. Otherwise, absolutely, because especially with pelvic floor issues, Mayan abdominal massage can help lift up the bladder. It can help with getting the weight of the organs off of the pelvic floor. And then also can help, especially if the organs are in better positions, the pelvic floor is going to have more even weight on it, and it's going to be easier to correct any issues.
Excellent. That's great advice for every woman, I think.
Yeah.
Right. I've never heard of that. So that's something that I would even like to see who does that and where are they. I wonder if our acupuncturist Deep knows about it, and Angela. I wonder if she does. We have a great acupuncturist, like I said, 2 doors away from the studio. There are 3 acupuncturists there, but there's one that we all love, and we work with her. And I'm curious now, because I've never heard of it before, to find out if it's great to pass on this knowledge to women as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. And there are trainings for it. I actually did a training in it in New Hampshire, and it was fascinating, like really just amazing that it's so helpful.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, so tell us a little bit, because we did go over, but this always happens with amazing teachers. Look, my solar lights are going off. It's so funny. I'm in this little tree house. So it's so cool that we're on different parts of the planet,
I know,
just talking to one another, right? How amazing is this? We've got England, Cyprus, like you're both in California, but you're somewhere else, aren't you? Aren't you in San Francisco?
I'm in northern, above San Francisco, in like the Sonoma County. Yeah.
And Los Angeles. Tell us about your trainings coming up, and you've also given any of our listeners a discount as well, right? Which I'll put up information, which is so great. Thank you.
I have I've put my whole 85-hour registered prenatal yoga teacher training online. And so I've done this training like 75 times, and this is the one that I do, that the same one that Ozzy took actually, but I've added a bunch of stuff in the last couple of years too. And I have it all online now. There's a self-study course, so you can do it on your own, and it's about 50 hours of video, but they're really short videos. They're like, usually the average is about 20 minutes long. So you're not sitting there watching 2-hour videos. So they're kind of easily digestible. It's my whole prenatal and postnatal yoga teacher training. And then if you do the certification track, so you can either do self-study, or you can actually get a certification to teach prenatal yoga. And for that, you also are going to do live Zoom calls just like this with me and groups. And so I'll be able to give you live instruction and assess your teaching and all of that. So really excited about it. This is my set back in back of me. This is where I filmed my teacher trainings. And I'm really, I didn't want to do it. I was thinking, I can't do this online. No one can learn online like this. And after having to cancel my entire year, 12 teacher trainings that I canceled this year. I decided I'm just going to bite the bullet and do it. And I'm so happy I did, because it's really great. And I'm really excited about it. So if anyone who's listening now or in the future, if you're listening to this, if you want to take it, I have a session starting next week, which like on the 13th, that's really small right now because I just started it. And so it's a great time if you want really one-on-one time with me and like a smaller groups, then I usually teach much bigger trainings. This is a great time to do it. And if you do, you'll get a 10% discount. You can use Wellness of Oz coupon code. And if you also do that, then Ozzy also will get 10% for her studio to help her open up her studio too. So, so please tell your friends about it, to any yoga teachers who are looking to understand prenatal and postnatal yoga. Even if you don't want to teach it, you're going to learn so much about your own body and so much about, you know, if a pregnant woman comes into your yoga class, or just, you know, the process of pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum. So, and that's my pitch.
And then you've also got a book. Tell us about your book, because this is recorded and this time doesn't suit everyone, but I know a lot of people, we're going to upload it onto our YouTube channel so other students and other people can just watch this video. So if you tell us your website as well and how they can find you, and also about your book, then
the website is dolphinmethod.com. Dolphin, like the mammal that swims in the ocean, Dolphin Method. And I have a book. It's called A Better Birth Experience, 10 Ways to Reduce Your Chance of Having a Cesarean. So it's super like easy to read, and has really nice illustrations, and it's just kind of what any woman can use to help them to enjoy their pregnancy more, and also have a less of a chance of having a cesarean, and talking about why that's important, but also to being okay if they end up having a cesarean, feeling good about that they've done everything that they could do, that they know that they really crossed every T and dotted every I, and they needed to have that. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Angela, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Your course, is it available to non-yoga teachers?
Yes, the self-study is for sure. You can do that on your own, taking your time. The certification course, you absolutely can take it, but you won't be able to teach prenatal yoga unless you already have a yoga, unless you already have like you're already a yoga teacher.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I remember from doing your course, Angela, we had midwives take it. Yep. We had non-yoga teachers take it.
Pregnant women.
There were pregnant women taking it. So it's really for, I mean, it's great information for all women. I learned so much about my own body whilst taking your course. I did come as a yoga teacher, but there were quite a few non-yoga teachers that came and participated in the training. Yeah, actually, you had quite a few midwives that took your course in Bali. Yeah.
We open it up when we go to a new place. We open it up to people who are from that area, and we give scholarships out. And I do have a scholarship, if you know anyone, for a BIPOC scholarship for Black, Indigenous people of color, because the birth rate in the U.S. for the like maternal mortality rate in the U.S. for people of color is like 3 to 4 times higher. And so we really need people in those communities to be doing this work. So I'm giving out 2 scholarships. So if you know anyone in the US who's a person of color who might want to take this, I do have that available as well. And my website is dolphinmethod.com. And all the information of the book and the training are there. And then there is a coupon code that is Wellness of Oz that you can put in, and that will give Ozzy her 10%, and it'll give you 10% off as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you coming and giving us your time to help us.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, it has. Like 2 more people tried to join in, but I'm not gonna let them enter because they can just watch it afterwards. I'll upload this video.
I'm
Thank
Prenatal
you
Yoga
so
on
much.
Instagram. Someone just asked. I'm at Prenatal Yoga. That's me.
Yes, and also you're on Facebook as well, but you don't
As
really
well,
use your
Prenatal
Facebook
Yoga.
much, do you? Oh, Prenatal Yoga, yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ozzy. Good luck with everything.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your beautiful advice. And like I said, it's just a real big blessing and an honor to have my teachers come here and help me again, right? And be here for me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Sending you
Thank
so
you.
much love. Give Jake a big kiss and a big
I
hug.
will.
And thank you guys for joining in.
Nice to meet you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Sorry,
Bye.
I had myself muted because the kids were really noisy and I didn't want to disrupt things. But thank you. That was brilliant.
Oh, you're welcome. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Bye. Bye, everyone.